Before we begin the show, I feel it necessary to say this. While legally speaking, everyone is innocent until proven guilty, I at Welcome to Geektown feel it is vitally important to believe victims. While we will be discussing Jonathan Majors and his performance throughout this deep dive, please do not consider this to be an endorsement in any way of his personal behavior. And if you have experienced domestic abuse and need help, please call 1-800-799-7233. Thank you, and now on to the show.
Open the podcast bay door as hell.
Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 166 of Welcome to Geektown. I'm your host, Kurt Onstead. We have another hour-plus long episode for you as Anne and I continue our deep dive on Season 2 of Loki. So let's get right into it with the title of this week's show. In this episode, titled 1893, which is where the majority of this takes place. Now, I found it interesting that in the recap, we have Sylvie asking what her Nexus event was.
Right.
And Renslayer saying, I don't remember. Usually if you put something in a recap like that, it's going to come up.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't come up in this episode.
I think the reason might be that there is something at the very end, which I'm not going to say yet, that mirrors it. Isn't the same thing, but it mirrors it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, feel free to point that out when we do get there.
Okay, yeah.
Now, what did you think of the opening theme?
So loved it. Oh my God. So they've ragtimed the theme. It's the same Marvel theme, but it's in pure honky-tonk piano ragtime, and it's fantastic. It took me a minute, and it took me like, wait a minute, this is going to be... Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first couple of chords didn't quite get me there, but then it started in, and I was like, oh, that's nice. And from there, we go straight into Chicago, 1868.
Yep.
On the sacred timeline, we note.
That means, by the way, we are 3 years after the Civil War, give or take.
Right. Which we get almost no reference to that or any sort of racial issues other than one moment that I will call out when we get there.
Yes, agreed.
But apparently Renslayer's not used to being in the field anymore because she steps out and is just...
Right, splat into a mud puddle and has this look of
oh man.
Those aren't bad shoes for mud puddles, but she really wanted socks.
Yeah. You don't want the mud splashing up and then dripping down.
Yeah, she clearly has not been in the field for a very long time.
Right. Because we saw in season 1 from the flashbacks that she was a hunter at one point and then got promoted to judge.
But hunters have never seemed to need to fit into the timeline.
No.
There's no disguising to look like you belong there.
No, not the hunters.
No, the agent.
But, yeah, the agents, now they do.
Yeah.
In the first season, when Mobius is in the church, he doesn't look like he belongs in 15th century France or whenever it was.
True, but he's also there with a party of hunters, so...
Right. Okay, so when they went to Pompeii...
Didn't bother with the right costuming either, because it was all about to end anyway. I mean, who was going to say, dude, we thought these guys wearing really weird clothes.
But Mobius specifically said, let's start small with the changes.
Right.
Can you make bird sounds?
Right.
So, he could have said, we'll start really small with the changes. I'm wearing this outfit instead of a toga.
Yeah. Let's make small changes. I'll walk down the street.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe someone will notice. But Renslayer, at least, is in fairly timeless clothing.
Yeah, the TVA judge's outfit that she is in is not super standoutish, but she also doesn't see anybody particularly.
True. Just Miss Minutes.
Yes. And a goat.
And Miss Minutes knows a plan.
Yes, there's a package to be delivered. Now, the minute I saw the package, I knew exactly what was in the package.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a certain size and shape.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, that's a book.
Uh-huh.
What book have we been specifically pointing at for the last 2 episodes?
Yeah. And now that we know how Victor Timely, essentially, or he who remains, got hold of the TVA manual, we now know that Ouroboros' name now makes perfect sense.
Oh, yeah. Ouroboros, Mobius. It's all about repeating patterns.
That's the theme that keeps going. But I mean, literally, who wrote the manual on the TVA, the guy who actually wrote the manual, or the guy who said, well, this is how it all works. It is a big circle now.
True. Yeah, I mean, it's what He Who Remains said at the end of last season. He said, you kill me, we're going to get another multiversal war, and then I'm going to end up right back here. And sure enough, it's a big old loop.
Yep.
And who are going to be the only ones who can break that loop? So my thought is we're going to see this loop back around, and the only ones who will be able to break it are the Avengers in Secret Wars or the Kang Dynasty.
That makes sense. I mean, as we know, I am not super familiar with the Secret Wars. I know the title and the general players in it, and that's about it, and that's okay. I want to keep it that way for a while.
Right. You probably don't even know that there are 4 of them, technically.
Nope, did not know.
Yeah. 1985, the original Secret Wars. Then 86, there was Secret Wars 2.
Electric Boogaloo?
Of course. Then there was Secret War, which was a much less cosmic, much more ground level story. And then there was the 2015 Secret Wars, which was a very, very soft reboot on the Marvel Universe.
Oh, okay.
Now, there's little details in this opening scene that I enjoyed. When Miss Minutes changes into her black and white form to blend in, she goes black and white, and you see the hands on her face now, the clock hands on her face, and you can hear ticking for a couple of seconds.
Okay, so I missed that bit, but did notice 2 other things. Her shoes change.
Okay.
The orange Miss Minutes, the modern Miss Minutes, has what are very definitely shoes. The black and white Miss Minutes has like elf shoes. Like they're they're kind of pointy and they're kind of wiggly at the toe.
Okay. A little Betty Boopish, maybe? Or
her whole thing in black and white is very Betty Boopish, because the other big change that I noticed is her eyelashes. Because the eyelashes in the black and white version are a little more to the side and have a more distinct curl to them.
Yeah. Well, they're very 2D.
Yes.
She doesn't quite flatten to a cartoon level, but her face is even more flat against the face of the clock than it is in the modern version. So nice little details there on making her more of a late 19th century cartoon versus
Well, I mean, technically that style of cartoons is still a couple decades away.
True enough.
But it's a lot closer than,
Yes.
I mean, though our regular Miss Minutes is still very 60s, 70s in style and coloration. But yeah, this basically it's as close as she can get without not being herself.
Yeah. And as we find out later, she can't make herself a real body.
Yep.
No matter what she does, she is always a cartoon. So Ravonna hands over the handbook by tossing it into a window.
Like you do.
And was the young boy, was he making candles?
Yes, he was. And
okay, that's what I thought he was doing.
Yeah,
but I wasn't 100% on that.
He was a chandler, or probably an apprentice to a chandler, and probably an apprentice who did most of the work. But I think it's also worth noting that candles have been used throughout time to measure time.
That's very true. Good point.
Which I think might have been one of the reasons that's why they chose that sort of job for him to do at the very beginning. I don't know if it has any other meaning outside of that sort of symbolism.
But this is obviously a young Victor Timely getting his origin story.
Yeah, I'd put him at about 10 years old, give or take.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Let's see, from 1868 to 1893 is 25 years.
So that would have been maybe 35-ish.
Yeah. Yeah. And how old is Jonathan Majors right now?
Old enough to know better.
34 years.
Hey, there we go.
So, yeah, that's about dead on. So then speaking of the TVA and its handbook, we cut back to the TVA with the author of said handbook and get a nice quick recap of the situation.
Just to be clear as to where we are in the disaster.
Yes. This is a very slow-going disaster.
Yes.
The ticking clock is not ticking very quickly on this one.
Not terribly fast, no. But I find it's nice to have both a reminder of what's going on, an establishment of what the MacGuffin is for this particular episode, and it sifts down the technobabble, just down to the bullet points, as opposed to
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Again, I feel if I have any complaint about the show at this moment, it's that it feels like they're dumbing it down a little too much.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're reiterating things that don't need to be said over and over again.
Well, I have also seen complaints from a few folks of I can't follow this. So maybe they did show it, in previews to a general audience, and some general audience went, I have no idea what's going on. And so they said, all right.
Let's
be clear.
Let's add some inserts here. Possibly. Maybe I'm the one giving the audience too much credit as opposed to the other way around.
See, you're a smart guy.
Aww. This does have one of my favorite bits of dialogue here, though, with Mobius saying, "We can hack into the system? We can? Oh, that's such a relief."
Yeah.
No. I'm wondering. It's understandable. He did say it very statement-like. It was not a question the way Mobius said it.
Yeah,
it was not, "We can hack into the system?" It was, "We can hack into the system."
I feel like that is there to poke fun at every other movie procedural show, etc. and so forth, that always has somebody who's like, I'm just going to hack into the system.
Yeah.
Yeah. Type for 5 seconds, look quizzical, type for another 5 seconds, and hey, I'm in. Here are all their bank accounts. That it's so easy to do. I mean, even when you're talking about late to mid 20th century tech, somehow that strikes me as even harder to hack into, only on the basis that it's old and Byzantine. But, maybe that's just my 21st century self looking back. I also have very little skill with tech.
Well, it was definitely a much more technical skill back then than it can be today. Like today, you can download a script. There's all those the baby hackers, the amateurs are referred to as script kiddies because they just download a script and use it. Whereas, the real hackers are the ones who actually make the code themselves and are doing the physical acts involved.
Well, and back in the day, in the early to mid 80s, in order to run a computer, you actually had to know a thing or two. It actually took some real, essentially book learning to learn how to really work a computer. Your layperson could figure out how to play Oregon Trail or something like that, but if you really wanted to do the most with your computer, you had to code a bit. It was the DOS.
Oh, definitely.
Back in the DOS days.
Oh, yeah. No, I remember with my Apple II Plus at home.
Yep.
I had to learn some basic programming.
Yep.
And I mean the language basic.
All right, we have gone on this tangent enough. I've got a heart out, man. Let's go.
Yeah.
It's my fault.
So they kind of reiterate, find Miss Minutes, find Renslayer, find Miss Minutes.
Yep, and fix the temporal loom, which I want to note, it is a loom. They call it a loom. That's fine. I'm not going to but it is acting more like Japanese, I'm going to say it wrong, kumihimo, which is a type of braiding.
Okay.
That is the cord making, which is taking many, many different strands and binding them into one cord. But that is just being a technical weirdo. So
it's your area of expertise.
So
it makes complete sense that you would want to point that out. So off Loki and Mobius go, getting dressed back up into clothes of the time period this time.
Well, let's make a little hitch here that they went to 1868 first.
Right.
See what happened. Their clothes are for their next stop for 1893. Now, I know exactly 10 people and me are going, hey. And they could definitely get away with it on the basis that men's fashion moves at a snail's pace for the most part, especially up to about the mid 50s.
Okay.
So even somebody walking past them will go, well, I haven't seen that kind of tie before. Interesting. And then keep walking.
Yeah. 25 years. I mean, even today, if you dress in 1998 clothing,
you're just back in fashion because retro.
Fair enough. But yeah, no one's going to be like, what is that thing you're wearing?
What are you doing wearing that?
And vice versa, if someone in 1998 was wearing 2023 clothing, other than, not recognizing a brand or something like that, you'd be like, walking
down the street, there would not be an issue. It's somebody who gets hold of the garment and looks at the label of either the brand or looks at the manufacturing labels. Because there might be some changes in
like copyright date or something,
copyright date. It could be that 1998 and nobody was using the level of rayon blends that we are right now because the price of cotton is through the roof.
Reasonable.
You didn't know that.
Those little details that the average person would not notice.
Kurt, you invited a costume designer onto your show. This is all
I did. And I'm totally good with it. Okay. So but yeah, they hit 1868 briefly, say, nope, nothing going on here, and then on to 1893, which apparently Mobius forgot that the World's Fair was going on. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, if the man knows all of time and history,
not a big important.
Yeah, it can be kind of tough to keep all that straight. I love how excited he is when he realizes where he is, though.
That's true, yes.
And I personally wonder whatever happened to World's Fairs and expos like that, because it looks really cool.
When was the last World's Fair?
I don't know. You look that up and I'm going to babble a bit. Because there was the one in Queens at one point, but I think that was in the 70s.
Okay.
So I think it was around there, but literally the entire world showed up at this one location. And they showed off, they had a little pavilion where they were able to show off their culture in one way or another. And it really was a way to connect one part of the world with another part of the world. As far as I know, the first thing like this was Queen Victoria's Great Exhibition. And I cannot remember what year it was, but it was before Albert died. But that is where they built a glass palace in the middle of Hyde Park, so they wouldn't have to cut down the trees.
Okay.
And the whole of the empire showed up, plus other places, so they could all get interconnected with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a date of the last one?
Present.
Really?
I mean, yeah, no, they are still going on. They've been rebranded as expos rather than World's Fairs. But the last one that actually happened was in 2017, and there is one planned for 2027. The 2023 Expo was canceled. They announced in October 2020 that because of the pandemic and the financial crisis, that they were going to not hold the expo that they had originally planned. But yeah, 2023 was going to be in Buenos Aires, 2027 is going to be in Serbia, and 2017 was in Kazakhstan.
Interesting.
Yeah, they're still going on. And I did like the little mention for all the true crime aficionados. You got to get an H.H. Holmes mention in there.
That's why I knew that name. I didn't re-look it up, but I heard that name and I'm like, I know that guy. Why do I know that guy? Because he was one of the first serial killer, something to that effect.
One of, depending on how you define serial killer. He was the one who had the murder house.
Yes. That's right.
Invited people to stay over and they never left.
So the shot on the midway as Mobius is going, oh my God, H.H. Holmes and Edison, etc. and so forth.
Hot air balloons.
Hot air balloons. That is a customer's dream/nightmare all at once.
Oh, I can only imagine.
Because it is, I get to do all these people from all these different places, followed by
I have to do all of these
people from
all of these different places.
And honestly, the turn of the century time period is not as hard as some other ones because there's so much stock that actually is available, but you'd be renting from like 20 different costume houses. And I think they shot these in London more than in Georgia. And London, I think, has costume houses that are just bursting with Victorian clothes. So
that makes sense.
Yeah. Also of note, at this particular World's Fair, if my memory is correct, and it might not be because I couldn't find the book that it's in, this was where the hot dog was officially invented.
Interesting.
Because the sausage dealer was tired of people walking off with the gloves that he loaned out so people could hold the hot sausages. And so he said, wait a minute. Why don't I have some bread made and wrap it around? Okay. And this is where the ice cream cone debuted.
Okay.
Because a deal that you had ice cream in little dishes and the dishes was one to wrap. Anyway, yes.
Unfortunately, that is not this World's Fair. That was the 1904 World's Fair.
Curse you, 1904.
Just 10 years off.
This is what happens when my copy of The Joy of Picking Out vanishes.
What this World's Fair does have the first of is the first Ferris wheel.
And it's a big one.
Oh, yeah. But before we get to the Ferris wheel, because that's going to be important in a little bit, we do get our heroes looking for clues.
Yes.
And they get a big one from a newsie here.
Plot point news service.
It's the 1893 equivalent of turning on the TV and the news talking about the exact story you need to know about. Although he mentions something else before he talks about the ghost clock haunting the Midway. The other thing he mentions is the Liberty Bell, which is not the one that we are familiar with, that we all know about.
The one in Philadelphia.
Right. This was the Columbian Liberty Bell, which was supposed to ring at the World Exposition in Chicago, Illinois, in place of the original Liberty Bell, which, because of its crack, could no longer ring.
It's delicate.
The bell was supposed to show up and be rung on July 4th, but finally left the foundry in August of 1893.
Way to meet your deadline.
Passing through cities including Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Philadelphia, and Indianapolis on its way to Chicago, where it was installed in front of the fair's administration building. From there, the bell was to visit major U.S. cities, Mexico City, and Runnymede, England, where King John signed the Magna Carta.
Yep.
After the Colombian Liberty Bells World Tour, the National Society planned to create a permanent home for it. But at some point during its travels, the bell vanished.
Really?
A January 1944 article by Josephine Ty Williams quotes an unsigned letter that reads in part, "I saw the bell in Chicago in 1893, and am sure I saw the same bell in St. Petersburg, Russia, as late as June 1905. I've heard that the bell was broken up under the regime of the Bolsheviks during the disintegration of the old Tsarist Empire. To date, the mystery of the Colombian Liberty Bell's whereabouts remains unresolved."
So, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to make a commemorative bell, do not do the Liberty Bell. It does not have a whole lot of good luck attached to it.
The Liberty Bell is cursed.
Yeah. First one got cracked, second one vanished, and looks like it got melted down by commies.
But I would love to find out in this series that somehow the Liberty Bell, the disappearance of the Liberty Bell, was caused by Loki.
We put a nice little bow on it.
Yeah. So yeah, they get their clue from the newspaper, and we get our first little, we're filming this in old movie techniques with the iris in as they walk off, and we get the ragtime piano back. Mm-hmm. You almost expected one of them to jump up and click their heels together as they... And they continue their investigation, sort of.
You know what? I gotta tell you that Mobius and I really think alike when it comes to searching. You go, you look around, but you should go get some Cracker Jacks. I mean, they're right there and they're delicious. And these are like fresh ones. That's why they're so sticky. It might as well enjoy what's out there.
Yeah, but at the same time, it kind of pops a balloon in the ticking clock.
Yes.
This episode, it doesn't feel like there's...
pressure?
Yeah. The stakes feel so low for all of time and space is going to be destroyed. And yet you have Mobius going like, well, I'm just a slow, deliberate guy. I want to walk around and get some Cracker Jacks. And it's like, there's a literal ticking clock.
But if you are a time agent, you leave the TVA at 9:00 and you come back to the TVA at 9:01.
That's not how it seems to work. That is not what they have shown us.
No, it is not what they have shown us.
It's the same thing with the time slipping in episode 1. Mm-hmm. There seems to be a connection between the timeline of the people in the TVA, such that however long they are out of the TVA or travel to a different time period in the TVA, it continues along at that same rate.
Yeah. Okay.
But we get another little fun scene here at the Norwegian pavilion.
Yes. Where you have Loki running into images of his relations, his father and his brother, namely. I'm not sure what relation Balder is to them directly. But I love his it looks nothing like them. The Odin one looks like...
yes, it looked like a carving of Anthony Hopkins. Yeah. Thor did not look like Chris Hemsworth.
No.
But Odin, I was like, oh, somebody was there.
Uh-huh.
So to answer your question, in the Marvel Comics, at least, things are different in the mythology. Balder the Brave is half-brother to Thor.
Ah.
And due to prophecies, this is going to sound very familiar to those of you who know your Greek mythology. It was foretold that his death would portend the coming of Ragnarok.
Hmm.
And so Frigga said, well then, I'll make him invulnerable to harm. And he is completely invulnerable except for mistletoe.
Mistletoe. Okay. So it's still in the foot area, just the toe instead. I'm kidding.
But yeah, the completely invulnerable except for one thing or one area.
Yeah.
You know, very much
like
along
Achilles.
the line of Achilles. Yeah. And in both the comics and the mythology, Loki tricks someone into firing a mistletoe arrow during a look how invulnerable I am sort of activity.
Hubris will get you every time.
Oh, absolutely. So Balder has experienced that death, but has come back, of course. As comics.
Comic book death is as permanent as soap opera death.
I think soap opera death is probably more permanent because at least in that case options. you have actors who die.
Yeah, that's true. And comic books just have more options for resurrection.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Or return. I found it Loki's reaction to seeing the carvings of his relations interesting, in that while he was talking to Mobius, he was kind of childish about it.
Oh, very much so.
But once Mobius wandered away, there was a certain look of longing that Loki had, missing his family, essentially.
Yes, although the petulance comes back at the very end. Thor's not that tall.
Yeah. Because you have to always be in competition with your siblings. That's a rule, or at least that's what they tell me.
My sister and I are fine. We have no competition whatsoever.
I'm an only child. I compete with no one.
But moving on, Loki finds our next clue.
Which is a big sign that says...
Victor Timely's Astounding Temporal Marvels.
Okay, which is awesome, but why is it in the German pavilion?
I don't know.
My wild guess is I paused it to look at the sign in detail. I didn't see anything that made me go, ooh, Easter egg, but there probably is. But there were a lot of musical acts. So I think Victor Timely might have been the orchestra's break, the musician's break.
Okay, reasonable. Except that he had music playing during his performance.
He did, but not a lot.
Not a whole lot.
Yeah. And the music act before Timely's presentation was like an oompa band. And I think the music for Timely's presentation was either piano or violin.
Piano, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone on the sign that was advertised, there was one piper, but everyone else were singers.
Right.
So yeah, it was all musical acts and then Victor. The only thing I did note, I looked up the names of the other people on there and couldn't find anything real or Marvel character other than the fact that Ferdinand Lang could potentially be a relation to Scott in some.
Yeah. No, I see where you're going with that. Yeah, that could work. I immediately thought of Fritz Lang, who was an early film director, but yeah, nothing to do with that.
Right.
My ancestor, but nothing directly to do with that.
But probably just picking out German sounding names, and Lang is right in there, so.
Yeah, and one of the writers went, ooh, Lang! And they're like, oh yeah, let's use that.
Yeah, that works. Moving along, we cut to the beer hall.
Yes.
With Renslayer and Miss Minutes.
In a
Poor
handbag.
Miss Minutes stuck in a handbag.
In a handbag. Ravona's outfit, by the way, those are bicycling togs.
Okay.
Yeah, so she is wearing what is turn of the century active wear.
Interesting. Which makes sense for the kind of things, for the kind of activities that she's expecting to be involved in.
Yes. But I know that some of you are looking at that going, that's activewear? Like, yes, that's activewear.
Oh, yeah.
Where you
Yeah.
were expected to play tennis in that kind of outfit.
I mean, look at the swimsuits that they
Yes.
were wearing at the time.
Yeah, let's note those swimsuits were made out of wool.
Yeah. Get in the ocean. Get in that wool outfit.
Yeah.
You're going to be so comfortable.
Yeah.
You're not going to be weighted down and drown at all.
I mean, wool will keep you warm whether it's wet or cold, which is nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, the weight of all that and wool shrinks. I mean, it seems like an odd choice when cotton is available, but cotton also can get really see-through when it gets wet. So, choices were made.
Yeah,
And
unless you do
more.
multiple layers.
Yeah.
So we get Timely's show here.
Let us note Mr. Timely has Frederick Douglass's hair. Exactly. It's slightly less gray at the moment because, he's probably somewhere in his mid-30s. But it's
Right.
the exact same style as Frederick Douglass wore. It would have been when Timely was a kid.
Yeah, well, he's wearing the fashionable hairstyle.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a statement to that too.
Okay.
Yeah, of equality and power and being able to be as good as anybody else. But that's again, I might be over interpreting style choices.
Yeah, well, again, there are so few references to the fact that Ravonna and Victor are of apparent African descent.
Yeah. I can understand Disney's choice in this because they didn't want to make a thing out of it. I'm also a little bit, maybe you should have made a little bit of a thing out of it.
Yeah, the only line here is when the robber baron, and that's how I'm referring to him because that's how the subtitles, the closed captioning refers to him.
Okay. I kept calling him the walrus.
yeah, no, I can see that. But yeah, he is referred to as robber baron, so that's how I noted him. And he says, "What would you know about the future boy?"
Yeah, the use of the boy as pejorative, as diminishing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That is basically the only reference at all. And it's one of those things where unless you know, it's not obvious.
Right. I do love how a choice was made at some point to give Victor a stutter or a speech delay when he's
okay.
And
let's talk about that.
Well, see, here's the thing. I love
this actor is making choices here.
Yeah, well, it's Jonathan Majors. He's known for that. I love in the presentation that he's using that stutter as drama as much as it is an issue. He knows it's an issue, so he's going to use that pause, that delay, and then the next word that comes out is like big, shiny things. So
time is the future of energy.
Yeah.
I don't know if I agree with these choices here that the actor has made.
I think one of the challenges of playing a character of the Kang variety is that you have 20,000 different Kangs, and that might be literal. And so you have to figure out how to distinguish one from the other.
That's a reasonable thing to want to do, is to make sure that you differentiate Victor Timely from He Who Remains, from Immortus, from Kang, from, So, yes, I can understand that, but it just feels like it's venturing into cartoon levels.
Honestly, there's a lot about this episode that ventures into cartoon levels, though. We'll get into that shortly. But yeah, he is making a very specific choice, but he sticks with it. He also seems to be very deliberate in how he's using that choice.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a characterization choice that also allows Victor to appear weaker, which comes in handy at certain points.
Okay.
It helps people not think as much about him. He can be dismissed.
Which is an interesting thing to want to do when at the same time you're trying to
sell your great invention.
Yes.
But that becomes a question. How much has he tried? Let's get into the next couple of points. How much is he trying to sell this?
Well, yeah, because the robber baron shows up. I mean, we get a brief conversation between Loki and Mobius and Renslayer wanting to get to him first and that stuff. But the important bit here is the robber baron wants to acquire the device and offers a partnership. Which is, you give me the patent rights and I'll facilitate production.
That is a terrible deal.
Oh, yeah. And we learn in this scene here that Victor doesn't do partners.
Stated for the first time this episode.
Yes. That is going to come back in a second. But another man approaches, and so Victor starts an auction for the loom. And Robber Baron wins after a brief
back and forth, driving the
back and forth
from the first offer of $500 up to $1,000.
Yes, which, all right, let's just do a little inflation calculation here.
I will also note that during his presentation, after he's heckled, that Victor says that all science is fiction until it is fact, which I found as a nice echo of the Arthur C. Clarke quote that is very famously magic, or all technology is magic, or magic is wait, now I can't remember what the quote is.
Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Thank you.
So $1,000 in 1893 is a little under $35,000 today. So it's not a huge amount still.
But, it's not bad for a prototype that doesn't actually work.
Yeah, that is true. It is a nice amount to con out of somebody.
Exactly.
And we see at this point that Victor is a con man because he gives the other bidder a little bit of money as in, good job, you played your role well.
Yep.
So, yeah, I have questions about how much Victor knows is capable of.
I think that he is limited by being a man in in the late 1800s.
Yes.
There's just concepts that have not been created or discovered yet that he can use, even if he was smart enough to comprehend them. So there's stuff that is still completely a puzzle to him, but he knows enough. He can pull out enough bits and pieces to create things. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. There's enough information for him to build some things, but they are still limited by him being a man of his time.
Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, how much of the stuff he builds is real or is just for a con?
Right.
Because we get they all approach Victor. Renslayer, Mobius, and Loki all show up. And while they're arguing with each other, a councilman shows up.
Yeah, they fight over him. Renslayer and Mobius are pretty much mom and dad fighting over the kid.
Oh, yeah, very much so. Although I skipped over another little fun moment here.
It's a fun moment that's still kind of like, why? But go ahead, yes.
Yeah, it does kind of come out of nowhere. I think it's just there to remind us what Loki can do.
Yeah, I think you might be right. And I think they wanted the distraction in the next scene. They wanted to line up the timing of the scenes. Because Loki bumps into a very large man who looks like Abraham Lincoln. The hat and the beard are total Abraham Lincoln.
Abraham Lincoln is lanky.
I know, he's like 3 times Lincoln's size.
Yeah.
He's like giant Abraham Lincoln. But again, the hat and the beard all say What? Anyway, Loki bumps into him. Dude wants to start a fight, and instead Loki says, yeah, nah, and poofs him away. So
It's a good thing this is a branched timeline that they're on, because
yeah.
they are making changes left and right here.
There's some issues going on. I mean, there's some new stories about the Chicago World's Fair that will come out between the ghosts and the poofing.
Yeah, but only on this branched timeline.
Exactly.
The sacred timeline,
It's
fine. It's fine.
But yeah, I think that whole thing was so because when they cut to the next scene, which is outside, as Victor and Renslayer heading out, there's also the bang poof and the crowd going,
Yes.
yeah, and running out. So
Well, that, and then they pass the pig cage, and there's the big guy in there.
Sulking.
So the councilman has mechanical trousers.
Yes.
And now I have to shout out the co-host of my other podcast. Carla noticed this and guided me to it. She misidentified him, but she put the thought in my head. The councilman here is dressed exactly like Turner D. Century.
Wow. Terrible.
Yes, but let's see if this link will work for you this time.
Turner D. Century. Oh, a fictional supervillain from the early 80s.
But yeah, look at that outfit.
Yep.
So, yeah, Carla at first went, is T.O. Morrow a DC character? I was like, yes, T.O. Morrow is a DC character, but Turner D. Century is a Marvel character.
Wow.
And I was like, there he is. Probably not actually him, but just one of those little Easter eggs for people like Carla and myself.
It's not quite up with the Phone Ranger, but it's close.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. The Phone Ranger, they at least call out the name. Here, it's just an appearance.
Right.
A look.
And apparently he needed some mechanical pants.
Yes.
Because don't we all?
Which I think we're supposed to make him taller. They were going to stretch him out or something.
I'm going to go with that's the case, because, I mean, that's what Victor says to him. You do look taller than you used to be. And, I mean...
As he shrinks himself down,
yes.
He very obviously crouches and says, oh, you look taller.
Uh-huh.
Like,
followed by a spiel of, well, they are only a prototype. Why don't I come by next week and we'll adjust the settings? I mean, it's very quickly, smoothly, nicely done. And then we have Loki, once they step away from Councilman who thinks he's too short, that Loki says, you're a confidence trickster. You know, that is game meets game. And
game recognizes game.
Yeah.
He's like, you're a con man.
Yeah.
I should know.
Yeah, exactly. And then Loki's tactics switch from confrontational to schmoozing. Which
makes total sense. Because he knows the best way to con a con man is to play to his vanity.
Exactly. And at that point, your robber baron comes bustling out of the German hall. And then cartoon chase number 1 happens, including the music. Come on.
Oh, yeah. No, I didn't think of it as cartoon chase at the time. I thought of it as Keystone Cops.
Yes.
It is another of the, we're doing an old style movie. Again, you almost expected it to be slightly overcranked, but they're sticking with the technology of today, but trying to make it feel like,
yes,
like I said, Keystone Cops kind of bumbling chase of our protagonist.
Exactly. And they go straight onto the Ferris wheel. I'm pretty sure Victor knows the ticket taker because he's able to breeze by him.
Yeah, Victor apparently had lots of friends here.
Yeah.
Because not only does he breeze by the ticket taker and say, I have to get on, and the guy's like, go. He also calls out his friend Hugo, who tosses him an apple or some sort of fruit, which Victor then turns around and beans one of the goons.
Yeah.
So Victor is well liked in this.
Victor knew how to network.
Yes.
They got to the World's Fair, started setting up, and he got to know everybody around him and made good friends with everybody because he's a smart con artist like that.
Exactly.
You need some connections, especially when you're dealing with like the low level workers who want to, be able to go up against the man, So, he bustles right onto that Ferris wheel. And I love that this is much more like the London Eye than your standard, beachside carnival Ferris
Well,
wheel.
again, this is the very first Ferris wheel, and this is what they were like originally.
Yeah.
They were big, giant cabins.
Yeah, it's almost a train car.
Yeah.
It's not quite as narrow, and not quite as long, but it's almost a train car kind of thing that goes in a big circle, which is like the London Eye does. And there's a casino in Vegas that has one too. I can't remember which one it is though.
Okay. Yeah, because these days, most Ferris wheels, you do not just take one round trip and you're done.
Oh, no.
But that was the case in this time, apparently.
Well, but it was also giant. And
right.
It probably took a while to get people
slow,
to get on
it looked
there.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Victor gets into the Ferris wheel carriage, crawls out just as the doors are closing.
From under a lady's skirt. Actually, it's from the side, not straight through the legs.
Yeah,
but
he
does pull the hiding behind a lady's skirt gag.
Yeah. But not under. It's not
under. Just but still, you have that swoosh of skirts as he exits out.
Yeah. And in the meantime, Hunter B-15 is calling into Mobius and letting him know that there's a weird tempad reading.
It's 10 feet away from you.
Yeah, it's Sylvie.
Of course it is.
Now, here's my question. She says, I told you if a variant popped up, I was going to kill him. How did he pop up to her? How did she know of his existence when Renslayer did, because she caused it?
Right.
But Loki and Mobius and the TVA had no idea that this was what they were going to run into here.
Where'd you get her information?
Yeah. Exactly.
Probably to be revealed at some point. And that might explain something about episode 1, when there was half a second of Sylvie inside the elevator next to the ringing phone.
Yeah.
That's all I can theorize at the moment, unless it's...
This is one of those questions that I hope gets answered.
Yes.
It'll be interesting to see. And this is my favorite part of the episode, is the fight and discussion between Loki and Sylvie.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I want more of, is the two of them together discussing what should be done or what shouldn't be done.
Because you have Sylvie, of course, wanting to kill Victor. You have Loki standing between her and Victor. Victor being very confused and spending a lot of time telekinetically pinned up against a wall.
Yeah.
And we see Loki again play to his audience because he's making all the arguments that would work on Sylvie.
Yeah.
He's giving her the specific, we need him so we can solve the problem, so you can go live on your branch, nice and peaceful, and be left alone. Which isn't the, we need to save the universe, this is the greater good, this is a thing that has to happen in order to save us all. This is focused onto her. Loki would have made a really good lawyer.
I have a feeling somewhere in his past he's already done that.
Probably what President Loki started as. I mean, come on.
He probably invented the
profession.
The profession, yes. But unfortunately, at this point, he's not able to convince her, and the Ferris wheel finishes its loop, and they explode out of the carriage. I think there's half a hair flip here, but it was so quick, I'm not even going to count it.
I was not paying attention to hair flips. I was negligent on this subject.
But Renslayer releases Miss Minutes. Says, it's your time now.
You know, putting it that way is so appropriate because Miss Minutes goes kaiju.
Oh, yes, she does.
Yeah. I mean, she releases the well, not the Kraken, but the giant clock of doom.
Release the Glocken.
There we go. There it is. I knew it was around here somewhere. And she goes stomping through the fair, being terrifying. It's fantastic. And
I love that she specifically becomes a ghost clock.
yes.
Her she gets the Pac-Man ghost, little frilly.
Yeah, just say she's Inky, Blinky, and Clyde. Nope, there's a Pinky in there too.
Yeah, she's Pinky.
She's Pinky.
Because Pinky was the only girl ghost.
Yeah, but Clyde was orange.
Yes, but Miss Minutes here is white.
Yeah, because she's in black and white at the moment.
Yeah.
But anyway, she gets all ghosty. Anyway. She goes all kaiju. It's kind of adorable.
It's great because all she says basically is boo and woo. It's like, that's all you need, apparently.
Pretty much. I mean, wouldn't you run for that? Oh yeah, you know what she really reminded me of? It was the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. And this is the second reference to Turner D Century here, because Mobius grabs a tandem bike for them to chase after. And guess what Turner would ride around on?
Okay.
A flying tandem bicycle.
Flying tandem bicycle. Even better. I just love Loki's like, are you serious?
He's like, no. No.
And so Victor and Renslayer make a break for it back to his... This one isn't his lab. This is his base of operation.
Head de terre.
Which is basically means tiny apartment. That's not
a translation. It's a French term that's basically like place where I put my stuff when I'm here. Yeah. It's like it's a second home, but it's like the tiniest of tiny homes.
It's a wee apartment in some place. Yeah. Betsy, believe me, my husband and I have had moments of going, oh, what we really want is a little pied-à-terre in London. Yeah, but I loved it when he used that term. It just made me go, aw. But anyway, I love that Victor's main invention here that he is lovingly showing off to Renslayer is the most dude chair in the world. It has a refrigerator attached to a refrigeration unit.
Here, have a beer. It's cold.
Exactly. And Renslayer is duly not impressed, but trying to make him feel better.
She is, but she isn't. It feels like, she's not impressed by the specific invention here. But at the same time, it feels like she is falling for him.
Yeah.
There is a chemistry there.
And right after that, you have Miss Minutes getting in between them.
Yes. Oh, we're going to talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah. And I think when we get to that, I will get to also do my first real ding on this series, because I'm a little by it, but a little further along. But anyway, they make a break for it.
Well, before they make a break for it,
yes,
Renslayer explains the situation to Victor.
Yes.
At this point, she says that she wants to use him to fix the loom as well.
Yeah.
Before she knew there was a problem with the loom, what was her plan and why is it changed?
I think because she now knows that the loom is a problem and that is something that would appeal to Victor.
Okay.
Or maybe she's prioritized. This is not spelled out, but, if the TVA doesn't exist, you can't go run the TVA again.
Right.
If you've destroyed all of space and time, well, that kind of puts a bow on everything and we're done.
And perhaps if she's the one who brings Victor back to fix it, then...
all is forgiven.
And she's put back in charge.
Yep.
Yeah. It still struck me as a little odd that that's suddenly her goal now, though. It felt like that came out of nowhere. It makes sense, but at the same time, it doesn't. You know what I mean?
Also, Mobius has explained the situation at the TVA to her at that point in a bickering, fighting divorced parent kind of way.
Yeah.
So they could have changed her priority, but also it worked on Victor. When Victor was presented with the chance to go see the time loom and fix the time loom, he was... yeah, I'm gonna go with you.
Yeah.
Then came
Let's
the
go do that.
interruption. Robber Baron interruptus. At that point, and we had our first cartoon chase onto the Ferris wheel.
Yes. Well, and
So
now we have our second cartoon
chase.
Or Keystone Cops or whatever you want to.
I love that he describes Lake Michigan as the Caribbean of the West, and that his actual lab is in Wisconsin for tax reasons.
I don't know tax laws well enough to
I
know
couldn't tell
you
that either, but I think the point is he wants to be on the other side of state lines.
Yes. Yeah, no, that
but
makes total sense.
I love that it's for tax reasons.
Lower taxes.
And then we have, again, Cartoon Chase number 2, which not only includes, your standard Keystone Cops running around, but you have Robber Baron chasing Loki and Mobius. Loki says enough of this and blasts them with Loki magic. And then we have a lovely shot down an alley of the poof of the magic and the Robber Barons and his goons running in the opposite direction.
Off. It's a very Scooby-Doo.
And then you have Victor and Renslayer popping out of a hiding place once the coast is clear.
Yeah.
Which again,
Victor has planned ahead.
Yeah.
He knows that he's going to get into trouble.
Yeah.
And so he has made this hidey hole.
But that is, Shaggy and Scooby hiding in a barrel and poking out because there were always convenient barrels. And popping out once the coast was clear.
Mm-hmm. And there were always 3 barrels, 2 of which had very differently colored lids.
Yes.
Because
cheap
those
animation.
were those were the cell animation as opposed to the painted background. And there's this little note here. There's this little line that Victor has as they get on the boat of, "We need the usual accommodations."
I loved. And then we get to find out the usual accommodations are a rowboat. One of the
lifeboats.
Thank you. That's the word I couldn't find. I kept thinking a skate pod. I'm like, wrong genre.
No, right genre, wrong time period.
Exactly. But yeah, they're lounging about. I love this lounging about in the lifeboat, going over. He's showing Renslayer what he has added to the TVA book, all of his notes. I love, by the way, books like that. Have like, here's the published stuff and here's all my scribbles about it, which is why I have literal cut and pasted notes. You can't really, I'm sure your podcast audience is going, what? But literally bits of one set of notes taped down and then more notes added. I love that look. I just think it's fun. So, him pulling out the TVA book and it has his notes, his scribbles, and his excitement at the possibility of meeting the writer.
Yes. I hope we get to see Victor and Ouroboros together.
I also love that as they're talking in the rowboat, Miss Minutes is sitting on the edge of the lifeboat and kicking her feet. The movement of her kicking her feet is just so interesting for some reason. I think it's because the toes of the shoes go back and forth. But yeah, it's just me. I'm weird.
And again, her jealousy is shining through here.
I mean, she literally gets between them. She waits for her opportunity to try to get between them. He gives her, Victor gives Renslayer that paper flower, and it's infuriating. But we have
the touching of the hands.
All so Victorian mannered, which is hilarious.
Yes. But then Ravonna says the wrong word.
Partners.
I have high hopes for this partnership. And man, the fact that she didn't notice, because he takes his hand away from her, he immediately cools off. The fact that she fell asleep soon after and was just trusting that things were going to be fine. It's been a while since she's been out in the field, apparently, because she has lost some of the social skills here.
Well, and some of her tactics too. I mean, you don't
Yeah,
fall asleep on
the
the job.
perception.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she is cut free.
I love this. The shot is great. You know, you have this nice shot of Ravonna sleeping, looking all peaceful. And the shot hovers
And
there. Splash!
sploosh.
As the lifeboat is cut away and splashes right down into the water. And Miss Minutes is the one manipulating Victor into, she wanted to be a
Yeah.
partner.
You heard her.
Yep.
You don't do partners. I know that. Except for me, apparently.
Apparently, but we're gonna find a little more about their relationship.
Yeah.
I do love that Ravonna is just like, ugh, and then immediately gets to rowing the boat.
Yes.
Doesn't whine,
Yeah.
she doesn't complain, and let's take a moment and remember she's rowing a boat in a corset.
Good point.
Ugh.
The fact that she catches up as quickly as she does is a testament to her physical prowess. But before she's able to catch up, Victor and Miss Minutes arrive in Victor's lab.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where Miss Minutes goes into fatal attraction mode.
Oh, you know, all of us that I have been able to talk to about that have noticed that immediately. My husband watched this as he was eating dinner this evening, and we talked about it a little bit once he was done. He was like, wow, that fatal attraction is like, yeah. Because the minute they get to his lab, her tone is just this creepy, pulling him, this loving admiration, but it is creepy.
It really is. I mean, obviously, earlier in this episode, she was showing her affection. She showed how much she was basically obsessed with He Who Remains.
Right.
But I was not expecting it to go this far this quickly.
Yeah.
And we learn a little bit about Miss Minutes' history here.
Yes, and I will have to say I was wrong. I was hoping she was going to be a fraction of He Who Remains. Instead, it was his AI, a program created to play chess with, and then he allowed her to develop her own programming. It is a lot like a person. You create a person, do some shaping of them, but they're still going to be who they are.
Yeah, they're going to become their own person, have their own personality.
Exactly. And that personality for Miss Minutes includes some very strong feelings about her creator. And she really pushes I've been there with you for eons.
I was the only one by your side during the multiversal war and after. And the only thing you wouldn't let me have is my own body.
Yep.
Because she wants to be his girl.
Yeah.
In the creepiest moment of this episode.
The mannequins in Victor's lab. I mean, that just implies that he's probably above some sort of garment production or a mannequin factory even. And she does get to occupy the female mannequin's face. And it is really, really creepy.
Yeah. I mean, she even kind of glitches out when she does it.
Yeah. She's got a point in a few ways.
She does, to a certain extent.
But
of course, she's taken it to an extreme and is a little on the insane side at this point.
Just a little bit.
And Victor is very good at putting her back into the temp pad quickly.
Yes.
And I like that they cut her off here and she gets the end of her sentence in the last scene later. But it was not long. The scene between Victor and Miss Minutes was basically uncut.
Yeah.
So the fact that Ravonna shows up right at the end of that and there is no time that passed,
having a day.
She could be on a crew team.
Oh, yeah. And she comes in roaring with the proto time stick.
Yes. Yeah, the prototype pruning stick.
Yep.
The fact that Victor has invented something like that and is still running cons.
Yeah.
He likes being a con man.
He likes being a con man, and he might not know what to do with it at that point. It's like I can touch things and make them disappear, but that leaves more questions than answers.
Yeah, I mean, that is a very useful weapon.
Yeah, it is.
If you can't sell that as a weapon to various governments, then you are not a good salesman.
Yep.
And if there's one thing we know about Victor at this point, he's a good salesman. But yeah, Ravonna has armed herself and she is now in charge of this relationship.
Oh, yeah.
Which is quite the reversal from the recording of their relationship.
Yeah, no, she sounded very submissive to him in the recording.
Yeah. Of course, this is a different person. This is a variant.
This is true.
This is not He Who Remains. This is Victor Timely.
I finally remembered who Ravonna was reminding me of in this scene. She's reminding me of Ripley in Alien because of the way she's holding the proto time stick and that it keeps buzzing,
sparking and buzzing.
I mean, she has a flamethrower at the point I'm thinking of, and I can't remember if that was Alien or Aliens. I think it was Aliens. I could be wrong. Anyway,
I think so.
That's the look I got.
Yeah. And then Mobius and Loki show up.
And they do their best to try to talk her down. Mobius going with is this the free will you were looking for?
Mm-hmm.
And what Ren really wants Renslayer wants is the return to order. And she wants to be recognized for her leadership of the TVA.
Yes. And I love the timing of her last lines here. All that matters is order versus chaos. I'm order. And I was like, and here comes chaos.
I admire the writers for restraining themselves of not having either Loki or Sylvie say, and I'm chaos. Because I bet it was in the first draft of the script. And no, let's not be that obvious.
And as Loki recovers from that explosion, that's when we get our only official hair flip. In this episode. He gives a full-on, head down, back.
Hair flip. Okay, pause for a moment. Then.
Sure.
This is my first real ding of this series, is that almost all of our female characters are motivated by love in one way or another.
Okay. Yeah. No,
with the exception of B-15. B-15 seems to be the only one who is truly just worried about the big picture.
I would not say Sylvie is motivated at all by love.
Yeah, but the reason she keeps she keeps backing down is emotion.
Well, it's emotion, but in this final confrontation, it's because she sees herself in Victor.
Fair argument, I think. But
he says, he looks up at her and he says, that wasn't me. I'm not the one who did that. I can make different choices. I can have free will. And she's like, oh, that's
the thing.
That's the whole thing. That's the point of this.
Well, and I think when I really hit that ding was in the Miss Minutes part when she was going Fatal Attraction. And we had just had the semi-romantic scene on the boat, and it was kind of like, oh, good Lord. And Victor and Ravonna had been flirting, and it was just kind of like,
we're failing our Bechdel tests.
Yes,
here.
We are failing. That is exactly it. We are failing the Bechdel test right and left here. But there's also, if you need to get the guy, you need to get the guy, no matter why you need to get the guy. So anyway, Sylvie makes a choice not to kill Victor.
Yeah. And I like the way she comes around to that realization. Mm-hmm. I like the confrontation between her and Victor, where he says all the things that basically make her go, oh, that's where I was.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was trying to tell the TVA was I can make my own decisions.
Right.
I can be my own person. I don't have to be another Loki. I can be Sylvie.
Right.
Even though Loki is ostensibly our protagonist, I like that it wasn't him giving another speech.
Right.
He gave his shot.
Yeah.
And failed. And so it had to come from a different source to truly make her see and change her mind.
Yeah, change her mind. I think she took what Loki said to under consideration, essentially.
Yeah, I'm sure it helped.
Yes.
But it was definitely Victor who pushed her over the edge.
Yeah.
So she lets Loki and Mobius take him back to the TVA.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, we find out her final move is kicking people through time doors.
That's exactly what I wrote down, is that's her signature move, is to kick people through time doors. And then she sends Ravonna to the end of time, where there's nothing but a corpse and a crumbling castle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good luck getting out of there.
Well, she does have a temp pad.
She does have a temp pad, but I have to assume, I don't know, it felt like that temp pad wouldn't work getting her out of there. It felt like she was trapping her there.
If not trapping her there, it's at least stalling her. And it's also letting her see what the end of time really is.
Yeah, that's true.
It really is a corpse in a crumbling castle.
Yeah. I liked the corpse there. I thought the detail on it was sufficiently creepy.
But not too gross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder how long it's been since Sylvie killed him.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how long decomposition takes.
And the atmosphere may be completely different there.
Yeah.
And I doubt there's any bacteria or vermin or... it's the end of time. Everything is dead except for up until the point Sylvie killed him, he who remains. And yeah, that's the final scene, is Miss Minutes and Ravonna hanging out at the end of time.
Well, Ravonna says to Miss Minutes that she had him. Ravonna felt that she had Victor right where she wanted to, basically when they were on the boat before she got cut loose.
Oh,
Miss Minutes took over.
And I think she did until she said the word partnership.
Yep.
And, maybe if Miss Minutes hadn't whispered in Victor's ear, she said, partners, we can't do this. This is not what you want. Perhaps she could have turned it around.
Right.
It's hard to say.
But Miss Minutes is mad and notes that it is foolish to make an enemy of someone who knows all his secrets. And then they just leave us with this nice, juicy little tidbit for next time, that Miss Minutes knows a big secret about Ravonna, and it's gonna make her angry.
Don't make her angry. You wouldn't like her when she's angry.
We've seen Renslayer angry, and when she gets angry, she gets very focused, but also very quick. So she'll make a decision and move fast on it.
Mm-hmm. So, any thoughts as to what that secret might be?
I am one to generally let the story take me where it's going to take me. Sometimes I hazard a wild guess or two, but my husband provided me with a theory that I'm going to share here.
Okay.
He thinks that Ravonna is Victor's daughter.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, that would
gave a blink like, what?
that would make the scenes in the lifeboat creepy.
Sometimes it happens.
Yeah. Luke kissing his sister.
Exactly. No, wait. Luke didn't kiss his sister. Leia kissed her brother.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
So my thought is that Miss Minutes is going to tell her about the previous iteration of the TVA. The one where He Who Remains was in charge and had the statues of him everywhere.
And the submissive recording.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's likely to make her mad.
But I guess we will have to wait until next week to find out. And on that, Anne and I ended our conversation on the show. If you have theories you want to share on what that secret is, or other thoughts on the show, or you have questions you'd like answered in a future scripted episode, please send those via email to welcome2geektown, all spelled out, @gmail.com. Or you can go to the website, welcome to, the number 2 in this case, geektown.com, and click the Submit a Question link if you prefer to remain anonymous. Other contact options include facebook.com/welcome to Geektown, Twitter @GeektownPodcast, Mastodon @welcome2geektown, @mastodon.social, or Blue Sky @welcome2geektown.bluesky.social. Also, if you'd like to support the show directly, why not become a patron at patreon.com/welcome to Geektown for just $1 per month to get access to full scripts of the shows, audio outtakes, and a monthly shoutout. You can also help the show grow by subscribing and giving a 5-star review over on Apple Podcasts to join the Geektown City Council, which helps other people find the show so we can all tell them,
Welcome to Geektown, population, us.
Welcome to Geektown is written, narrated, edited, and produced by me, Kurt Onstead. Theme music is by Aaron Levitz, logo art by Archie Santana. All of their sound clips are the copyrighted material of their respective owners, and no infringement is intended, falling under fair use.